before I get started, I would like to issue a spoiler warning. This video will cover the entirety of the main Madoka storyline as well as movie 3 Rebellion. If you have plans to watch or are currently in the middle of it, please stray away from this video as I do not want to ruin your enjoyment. Otherwise, thank you all for watching and enjoy. After finishing Kimi ni Todoke, I was once again at the crossroads of deciding what piece of media did I want to cross off my list next. I was in the mood for something a bit darker, something that would really catch me off guard. I began to think, was it finally time to crack open Berserk and see what the hype is about? Or maybe it's time to watch the heavily acclaimed monster that I've heard so much about. There were many options on the board, but what I arrived at was so much worse than I could have imagined. At last, we decided on Magical Girls. Gone terribly wrong. I think it's a no-brainer that with the anime coming out back in 2011, there was no way my younger and ignorant self was going to be convinced to check out Madoka at the time. I put the series in the same bin as Evangelion with the never getting peed label in mind, and well, I think we can see how that went. When you think of the magical girl subgenre, the first two series I'm sure that come to mind is Everything Pretty Cure and Sailor Moon. Two of the most iconic pieces of Japanese fantasy media that has been going strong for years now. From a bare bones view, you naturally associate a lot of the more positive words with these series as well. You think romance, teamwork, hope, love, etc, you get the picture. These can be a pretty common group of words to use among multiple installments, but the one thing people, myself included, tend to forget about is the idea of subversion. When you have a genre that is defined by a formula that while works over the years, at some point you'd want a fresh take on a story as a whole. Come the first two episodes of Madoka, you get the impression that this will bring something different just from the fact that not only do these girls straight up beef with each other over targets or territory, but also the fact that, well, some of them have guns. Not to mention, all of them have a contract with an alien species, and that tends to never roll over smoothly. Homura at first glance seemed like she'd be the antagonist of the show, and while I had my doubts about QB because he was so pushy about the wishes, you imagine that things would stay afloat, especially with somebody like Mami taking that leader role. And then you get to episode 3. Alright then. Madoka is the prime definition of get that hopeful shit out of here. Everything you think that is supposed to make up a magical girl story does not exist except for the transformation and the tragedy. The idea of teamwork only leads to beef or death, and selflessness itself is like a sin. The story dared these characters to start spewing the idea of being protectors and performing the duty of fighting witches as some form of righteous act, while QB sits there and practically smiles evilly, annoying to the audience. I gotta say, as much as I hate the thing, it was a really good villain for the show, as there is nothing more dangerous than a wish with a contract imbued with hidden terms and conditions. A logical force is the perfect type of opposition for a group of emotional people. My original assumption was that the wishes would be a genie in the bottle situation, and while that did manage to happen, depending on the type of wish made, the contract itself is the real source of deception, turning these girls not only into zombies so that they could continue to fight between their injuries, but upon the failure to protect their soul gem into the very thing they seek to destroy. All for the sake of turning their despair and grief into an energy source. Call that renewable energy. The cherry on top being that they're literal children who could die in a heartbeat and nobody would know what happened to them, and 3 episodes in, you guessed it, I'm stressed. Then you want to tell me that the main character is supposed to be the most powerful one of them all, and that can also lead to her being the most powerful witch in the universe? Yeah, seems legit. If there's one writing choice I liked, it's the fact that the main character herself was the one that held off her wish the longest, and for a very good amount of reasons too. Every wish had their consequences, and as depicted by Sakura, being selfless doesn't always mean the happy ending. Madoka needed to witness despair, sacrifices, and the spirals of those around her in order to truly come to terms with the gravity of one single wish. You sell your soul only for it to be eventually corrupted itself, and we saw this occurrence as these characters kept falling one after another. What started out as Homura looking like she's the biggest hater of all time quickly turned into Homura was right all along. There's no purer form of hell than having to relive the same nightmare over and over and over without being able to change the outcome no matter what you do. Given her position as a time traveler, some timelines ending worse than others, and that level of repeated trauma would naturally steal one's resolve even if it meant being much colder to those around you. Side note, but her also having infinite guns is pretty freaking cool. Don't put me in a room and ask me unlimited arsenal works versus unlimited blade works. I think it's much closer than we may want want to admit. Despite her own journey and efforts, it became painfully clear that Madoka was doomed to repeat the same fate as if she were chosen by fate herself. To QB's delight, it worked in his favor because of her self-sacrificial nature. Listen, we've seen some characters who are willing to toss away both mind and soul in order to save another, but Madoka's endgame was scary no matter how you looked at it. The most powerful magical girl will always lead to the most powerful witch, and unlike the rest of her peers, she is the one character who has the spirit of sacrifice that is true to the traditional magical girl, which made so much sense why there was so much importance and focus when it came to her choices, and also makes sense as to why she is so powerful. You can't blame Homura for lying low and appearing when she needed to in order to prevent her transformation. Yet you can also see why QB ensured certain situations would play out and roadblocks eliminated in hopes to manipulate her into making that wish. As the show went on, there was just no hope for any of this to get better compared to Homura's timelines. Mami got one crunched, Sayaka despaired and mighty morphed into a witch, Sakura died in an attempt to save her, and Madoka witnessed it all. Between seeing your best friend lose her sanity in real time and being unable to help her heal, and watching your idol literally get bodied, I don't know how anybody can remain sane in this eternal fight. It's surprising that Madoka didn't spiral a lot harder compared to her peers. Put me in there and I'm tapping out by episode 3. And you want to know what makes this more heartbreaking? It's the result of Madoka and her mother's relationship. The beginning of the show displayed such a healthy relationship between the two with no secrets withheld, only for a mother to eventually be at a loss when her daughter comes to close herself off. Yet how could Madoka tell her mother she witnessed her best friend die, or that the fate of the world could rest upon her shoulders? Even with taking into account the space between them, their final conversation is the epitome of unfair. Still no answers, still not in the clear of what is really going on, and yet entrusted her daughter to go and do whatever she needed to do, only to never see her again in this timeline. I can't do this no more, man. I'm at my limit. The finale of this series is far from what I would consider the good ending. Once again, Homura has failed to stop Madoka, but this time Madoka ended up becoming the salvation of magical girls. A heck of a ascendance if you ask me, becoming a literal concept being the law of cycles. Now I'm not gonna sit here and act like I understand the full nuance of Madoka's decision, because I'm sure there is some level of revision that I need to apply before I fully understand this finale, but in a general sense, her wish is the ultimate sacrifice. A universal level one at that, considering she rewrote the universe to the point where her existence is not even known and she was never even born in this new timeline. While she may have foiled the incubator's plan, she still did not avoid a fate that I would consider still unfair to those who cared about her. On top of that, I do have to wonder if her saving the souls of magical girls before they become witches is still the absolute best outcome here. Do they become part of her as the embodiment of hope, or do they even get to pass on? And what about their own families upon their salvation? This is why I say that there is truly no happy ending for Madoka, and to take things further, we still have one major issue, and that being Homura's wish had not been granted. At least before tapping into movie 3, and Jesus Christ, where do I even want to begin with this? Let me go ahead and get the raw tax comment out the way now, but Homura vs. Mami, pretty freaking raw. Easily one of the coolest fights in the medium when it comes to firearm usage. Again, unlimited blade works, step outside. Homura just wants to talk. This movie had my brain feeling the same way it felt when I was watching all of the Evangelion rebuilds for the first time. Remember how I said that selflessness in this show was like a sin? Well, we may as well throw love in there too. The extra mile Homura went in order to make her wish come true genuinely shocked me, but I cannot say that it's something that just came out of nowhere. Homura's single point of hope lied in the fact of her being able to traverse time to eventually be able to succeed, but when coming to the realization that she never would, her only choice was to befriend the mere opposite. Her power from despair allowed her to separate the concept of hope from magical girls into two separate things. In this, she succeeded in finally gaining her own wish by doing the one thing everyone else could not, and that's being selfish. She knows she's wrong for this, and she knows she went against Madoka's wish, but at this point, she's well past the point of caring about the technicalities. The flower garden scene only steeled her resolve. As of where the story ended, the two wishes technically coexist, though neither's final results are clearly perfect. Love is a heck of a powerful thing, and Homura's just so happened to be god level. I genuinely owe Madoka an apology. I was not familiar with their game. By far, one of my favorite binges this year so far, and quite frankly, I'm glad I waited till I was much older to binge, as my current mindset allows me to appreciate the story elements a lot more than what I would have years ago. How this story may wrap up is anyone's guess, but with the upcoming movie, I wouldn't be surprised if the author stuck to their strengths and brings misery around all the way to the end. That's pretty much it for me though. As always, thank you for watching, and please leave all your thoughts about Madoka and feel free to clear up anything I said that was off base in the comment section down below. Stay warm out there, and I will catch you all in the next video.